welcome back to Inside. We are here with Aging and In-Home Services Northeast Indiana. We're talking about aging together versus aging alone, and so many of our seniors will end up aging in place in their homes alone, and we want to talk about some of the challenges that creates, and sometimes it's loneliness. And you know, we were just discussing during the break that you can be in a room full of people and feel really lonely.
Yes.
But a lot of times it more often happens if you are isolated and alone, and really loneliness, you were saying, has become a real epidemic. It's a public health, it's a crisis.
It is. It is. And like you just said, you said the key word is you feel lonely. So alone and lonely, they're two very different things. Being alone is the state of being. It is something that you are. And then lonely, it's a feeling, it's an adjective, it's an emotional, it's a mental thing.
Okay.
So yes, you can totally feel lonely when you're in a group of setting, but you also can feel lonely when you are alone. And so just knowing the difference between the two, and knowing that even though you are alone, you're not technically lonely. You can not technically.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And if you're lonely, you aren't always alone. So knowing the difference between the two, that really can help with knowing where you are in state of health.
Living alone can be a health risk because you may slip and fall and you're unable to get up, or you might have a stroke and you don't notice it, so you can degrade your health by those kinds of things. But lonely is insidious, and it will take your health down so much faster. In fact, they equate in this public health crisis that death from loneliness is equal to death from smoking. So
Comparable to that and of obesity. It's the same decline patterns.
Now, senior isolation can mean that they're living away from family and friends, right? They're living alone. But it also means that mentally they isolate themselves.
Correct.
And like you were saying, that creates all sorts of other things. Because, so I'm making a scenario here.
Okay,
Let's do it.
So, Charity. I couldn't come up with any other name. I didn't want to say a name and it'd be like somebody I know, and then they'd get mad at me. Charity has isolated herself, and so she hasn't been out of the house. She hasn't been meeting friends for coffee or dinner or drinks. She hasn't been going to church. She hasn't been playing tennis, whatever the things that she used to do. And now she could have, she hasn't been getting Meals on Wheels or any of those things. She could have fallen, then she could have been there for days and nobody known because she had completely isolated herself.
if she's a Meals on Wheels client, we would find her, and I'm saying not that, I say that because we often have, unfortunately, often find someone who has fallen and is unable to get themselves up or has passed away from something else. And so you do have someone checking in on you. One of the really important things I would say to aging together or aging alone is have a primary care physician, because that physician and their office staff are going to be monitoring your health. And if you don't show up for an appointment, they are going to be the ones calling you and your emergency contact to find out what happened to you. And they're going to be monitoring your health. So if you have a chronic condition and over the age of 60, 65, what is it, 80% of people have one and 50% have two. Well, the unfortunate thing is there's no maximum. You could have 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever number
7,
of conditions, yes, and all with different medications and regimes in which that you need to follow. Well, you need a primary care physician who's helping you manage that. Don't just say, oh, I'll run to the Quick Mart and do this, or the pharmacy and self-diagnose. A primary care physician is a really important person in your life, but especially for solo agers.
I want to bring up something just quickly that we don't like to talk about, but somebody who has isolated themselves is more likely to be the victim of elder abuse too.
Correct. Yes. So in that situation, whether it's geographic or whether it is like a mental state, you can be succumb to scams, or even things like when you are feeling you don't have like the, what is it called, confidence to speak up at your appointments and say, look, I'm having this trouble with my foot. if you don't have the confidence to say those kinds of things, then who's going to know what's really the root of the problem?
And you want somebody to confront you. Are you doing okay?
Right.
Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. Okay. Well, what are you going to do when you're not fine?
Right.
What if you live in a 2-story house and you can't go
Right,
upstairs? Then what are you going to do? Are you going to continue to tell your doctor, your neighbors, and your friends that you're fine? Or are you going to do something because that one condition has changed? If you can't ever get upstairs.
It's important to note the stages of aging alone are really the same as the stages of aging together. It's just a different situation. You don't have that other person there with you. You're still going to go from independent to depending on somebody else to
Right.
being completely dependent on someone else to that, what do you call it, crisis management?
There's usually an event that happens typically in those stages. That's how it kind of goes.
That's how you get to the next one, to then the institutional care. Well, you guys have a lot of resources that can help us for seniors that are living alone. I want to talk specifically about those resources when we come back. Stick with us. We'll be right back.